Welcome to the Sparta Dynasty Fantasy Football League news and updates, starring Shark, Dylan, Tyler, Ben, Alec, Chris, Smits, Zoms, Matt, Connor, Germ, and your commissioner and host, Branson. Hello, fellas. Here we are at our preseason power ranking show. And first things first, I just want to say that I tried to be as unbiased as I possibly could, which I think I did a pretty solid job at. I guess we'll have to see what you guys say about that. But these rankings are just for this season, what I think is going to play out as this season, not the future, and I'll explain them as I go. So maybe you guys can agree or disagree. We'll see. And finally, if you're on the bottom tier of this list, I don't want to hear your hating. All right, save that for yourself and get your team better. You know what I'm saying? All right. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alrighty, so at number 12, bringing up the caboose, the man who is gonna eat shit at the end of the season, we've got Shark. Sorry, buddy, but I got you in last place because, quite simply, your roster is the only one that doesn't have the pieces for a playoff push. While you can expect Patty and Clyde to put up consistent performances, the rest of your starting lineup are question marks. Aaron Jones will either win or lose your weeks, and your best receiver isn't even the number one on his own team, and the rest of your receivers are unproven or injury risks. Your depth chart is a little unreliable, and you don't have people to throw in on a crunch. So that is why you are gonna be number 12. And at number 11, I've got Tyler. And while I actually do believe that any of these next teams have a solid chance at the playoffs, I think that Tyler has the toughest road ahead of him. And while his starting lineup does look quite solid, its upside is limited by his starting two tight ends, and an injury to any position would crush his hopes at the playoffs because his depth chart is extremely thin at every single position, besides tight end. Alrighty, number 10, we've got Germ. Germ finds himself with a pretty decent roster even after a tough draft, but the lack of certainty and depth is what puts him in the 10th spot. After addressing his quarterback in a trade with Al, his main concern will be finding consistent production at his running back 2 and flex positions. Germ's ticket to the playoffs is Cam Akers taking over the Todd Gurley role in years past, and one of his fourth receivers to step up to fill out that flex role. At number 9, the last guy outside the playoffs is Zoms. Zoms finds himself at number 9 because of the volatility of such a young roster. This team will either overperform or fall apart quickly. With Lamar Jackson as his only starting quarterback, he takes a major risk, especially with the waivers being so thin. Zoms does have a deep, young core of running backs and wide receivers to build off of, but if he's going to make the playoffs this year, it will require Dobbins to take over and Ruggs to explode immediately. And at number 8, my projected last seed in the playoffs, I've got Al. Alec slides into the last playoff spot behind the consistent scoring of veterans and the usable depth in every skill position. With a solid stable of wide receivers and tight ends, the running back group is what will make or break Al's season. If Jonathan Taylor is able to take over and dominate, and Todd Gurley is able to stay healthy this year, this is a roster that can dink and dunk W's on its way to the playoffs. At number 7, I've got Smitty. Smitty is the dark horse of the league. He harbors a roster that tends to be injury prone, but if he can avoid that bug, his team has enough talent and depth to win the chip. Led by a running back core of Dalvin Cook, Kenyon Drake, and Raheem Mostert, he should usually be able to have one in the flex and one of his three starting quarterbacks in the super flex to help with any injury issues at wide receivers. If AJ Green stays healthy and Noah Fant breaks out, this is a team to fear. And at number 6, we've got Connor. Connor is at number 6 because of the scary group of wide receivers he has to pair with a mismatched tight end in Travis Kelce. Mark Ingram and Kareem Hunt will have to carry the load at running back, but if Fournette can find his role in Tampa, the flex position will be taken care of. His super flex is looking to always have a quarterback in it, but he could struggle on their bye weeks if Locke doesn't prove himself. And at number 5, I've got Dylan. Dylan gets the number 5 spot because of the guaranteed dominance at the running back position. A lot of the upside on Dylan's season relies on the production and improvement of young players. Terry has to solidify himself as a dominant wide receiver this year. Hockenson needs the breakout, and either Burrow or Baker has to be solid enough to cover that superflex position. This is a high ceiling team with a floor that isn't that low. I believe that this, along with the rest of these teams, are pretty much guarantees to make the playoffs. The only way that they don't is if something catastrophic happens to them. And at number 4, we've got Chris. Chris gets the number 4 spot to a similar reason as to Dylan's team because of the 2 dominant running backs. But he also has a monster wide receiver core to pair with those monster running backs. Chris has 2 veteran quarterbacks that should put up solid points each and every week. He also has a deep tight end pool to choose from, headed by the high-scoring but oft-injured Evan Ingram. Chris will struggle on the bye weeks of his quarterbacks and running backs due to the lack of depth and will be ruined should any of them suffer injury. At number 3, we've got Branson. I am at the number 3 spot because I believe that I have the strongest depth in the entire league. At every skill position, I have 1 or 2 contributable backups to slide in for bye weeks and injuries. This roster is very solid, but not too flashy outside of Saquon and Skittles. The main thing that could hurt my team is the strength of my quarterbacks, as well as finding someone to consistently fill the running back 2 and super flex positions. The projected runner-up to the championship of the league is Matt. Matt is at number 2 because of the 3-headed monster of Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, and Chris Carson. This dominant trio will always be taking up that flex position and leave his dominant receiving core available to fill in that super flex for the bye weeks of his quarterbacks, Russell Wilson and Ben Roethlisberger, who are going to be contributing every single week as veteran quarterbacks. Matt's biggest question mark is the production at tight end. Will Matt Gesicki or Gerald Everett be able to contribute and be that starting tight end? We shall see. And now, to the projected champion of the league, Ben! Go Ben, yeah! Ben is going to be the champion of the league because of the dominant quarterback performances he's going to get each and every week at the quarterback and superflex positions. He has 4 startable quarterbacks that he'll be able to swap in and out based off of matchups and just dice everyone this season. His running back core is going to be very volume based, and you can guarantee that they're going to get their work every single week this season. His wide receivers are dominant. He's got 4 dominant receivers, and yes, I'm counting Devontae Parker because of what you saw last year. Dominant. The only question mark is the tight end position. Are we going to get the Ebron that is the touchdown champion of the league, or are we going to get the Ebron that has Butterfingers? That could be the killer of Ben's season We shall see. We shall see. So that concludes my preseason power rankings. Obviously, these are just my opinion on what's going to happen this year. If I had to bet my money on how everyone would place, this is how I would bet it. Obviously, things are going to happen throughout the year that are going to make this shift like crazy, such as free agent selections, injuries, silly trades, all that jazz. But this is how I see it playing out. The way it is. Let me know what you guys think about this. Try not to hate me too hard, all you non-playoff makers. That's all I gotta say. Good luck on the season, fellas.